Percy, the stories I have told you about great gods and monsters, they are real.
Walker, you're getting my first two questions here about the audition process, because I was reading that Rick was really blown away by your tape. So what were your top priorities when making them? The things you wanted to do to make sure you set yourself apart from everyone else auditioning for the role?
I think his sense of humor kind of came naturally to me because I feel like we have a very similar sense of humor. It was a very long audition process. I auditioned back in January 2021 when I was filming the Adam Project. And then I got pinned in like February, and I didn't hear back from them all the way until like August or September or something. And then I did like 2 callbacks, and then in the next January, Rick called me and told me I got the part.
A long audition process is always a good sign.
Exactly.
All right, I'm putting you on the spot with this second audition question because I was reading that after you got the part, you were able to do chemistry reads with the actors testing for Annabeth and Grover. So I want to know, with these two, when you met them for the first time, what struck you about them that maybe made you think, like, yes, these are the perfect fits for these roles?
With Leah, it was automatic. I knew she was going to be Annabeth. She was amazing.
Thank you.
Aryan, on the other hand,
I really had to prove myself there.
I don't think he ever did prove himself.
Oh, okay. This is the first time I'm hearing of this. So.
I mean, it was...
I didn't know you felt like that.
He really tried. That's the most important part. He tried.
You saved the drama for the press day. Very appropriate.
Aryan was amazing. Of course, everyone that auditioned was amazing, but I think they picked right.
He's lying.
I'm going to agree with what you just said. Your chemistry is on point. Question for all three of you now, a big question, 2-parter. What is something about the version of your character that's in the book that you really wanted to hold tight to and bring to screen here? But then I also want to know something that you decided to bring the role to make this version of the character uniquely your own.
I feel like, at the beginning at least, Percy's not that cool yet. He's still kind of a kid. And I feel like it came very natural to me.
Yeah. There was no acting involved.
No acting.
He didn't have to like tone down his coolness at all.
They had to.
Fair. If you're too cool, you're probably boring.
Exactly.
Or at least that's what I've always told myself.
Yeah, I've told myself that a couple times. But I feel like it's important to remember that they're still kids, and I feel like we kind of showed that well in the show. Mm-hmm. That they're 12-year-olds, and he's 24, but acts like a 12-year-old.
Yeah. Well, on that, Grover is 24. He kind of behaves like a 12-year-old, but he has that. Mm-hmm. He has the experience and the wisdom that might come with having lived for 24 years, and that's something that it's easy to forget looking at Grover. That by the end of the books he's like 40. But yeah, it's something that I really wanted to I guess kind of put at the forefront, that he is. He knows how to work his way around the gods. He understands this world very, very well. And I was glad that I kind of got to work on that with Andrew, our acting coach.
Mm-hmm.
From the book, I wanted to bring out her strongness and her independence and her actual, her dry humor, actually. I wanted to bring that out because there's a lot of scenes in here where Percy is for example, in Capture the Flag, when he tripped over the tree, and then I'm just staring at him like, okay.
Completely unscripted.
Yeah. Completely. From myself, I wanted to bring in a side of sensitivity, if that makes sense, a softness to her.
I could feel that. I could definitely feel that combo there.
Yeah.
All right, I have to ask all three of you about working with Rick, because he was heavily involved in this version of the book going to screen this time around. So can you each maybe pinpoint something that he did for you, whether it was a tip or some extra insight he gave you that made all the difference, and now we can see it on screen in the finished product?
He told us, because, obviously what people say online and stuff, there's positive and negative, but he told us, to always stay positive and to remember that, as a reminder, that he picked us. Not, not just some random person just said, oh, I want these two. Mr. Rick, the author, the creator, the starter of all of this, picked us to play these characters. So that's, something in the back of our head, to think, no matter what any of these people say, the person who made this picked us. So like if he thinks that we're gonna be great for this, then we definitely know that this is gonna be great. So we took that and put it into these scenes, and I feel like it's gonna be great when it comes out.
Yeah, getting to talk with Rick was, I mean, invaluable. This is his, his passion project. It's his, kind of child. He's been working on it for almost 2 decades now, and getting to talk with him about like Grover, it's easy to forget that he's a mediator for a reason, and it's because he's very empathetic. As our acting coach would say, he's a somatic listener. He's very like tuned into everyone's emotions. He can kind of see through people in a sense. I'm not sure if that's the right like phrase for it, but he definitely can tell if there's something that's being hidden or someone's not quite honest. And I think talking to Rick, it was nice to kind of discuss that and also bring that up to the forefront.
All right, Walker, what you got for us?
I've been trying to think of something. I think they summed it up. Rick's the best. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
He's the best.
He's a special one that created something a lot of people out there love.
The dedication of the new book.
Yeah, that was.
I can't believe anybody would do that. That is
I know.
so...
Every time I walk by a Chalice of the Gods, I always like to open it up and look at the dedication. It's like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
I love that so much. All right, so having Rick be there for you and supporting you is very important, but it's also very important to have a supportive scene partner. So can you each name a time on set when a scene partner was just the person you needed to be, where they helped you access something in your own character that you might not have been able to reach without them?
Well, I don't think I really had that a lot, especially with my main cast. I don't know, just something like
I have a
Percy...
full sense of your sense of humor.
No, everyone, especially like the co-stars and the guest stars, were so good. Getting to work with like Adam, I got to do a one-on-one with him in a cafe. It was I don't think I've ever learned more from someone than I did with him in that one-on-one scene. He was so good, and he was such a professional about it, about every little like slip up that happened. He had such like a grace about it, and I don't know, it was incredible, like every moment of that scene.
For that scene when you and Luke were fighting, where I was actually there, but couldn't see me because I had my hat. Definitely in that scene and stuff, after I seen all that stuff happen, and I took the hat off and things, like, I was like, how dare you, like, betray us like this and stuff, and I felt like I reached a certain point to where, because that's when Luke, like, seeing Percy on the ground and stuff, like, like suffering and things really, and then I'm seeing Luke standing there, the person who was my best friend, my brother, just betraying all of us really and stuff, and I thought I could be so close to him when I see him right there in front of my eyes, just like be this whole different person that I thought I would never see in life.
Well, I mean, just with the three of us, it's like with like Leah and like Leah specifically, it's like she really gives us stuff to work off of, which is really great, like just actor-wise, and I just get nothing over here. I get nothing from him.
Well, I don't have much to work with, okay?
I think you
He
get
doesn't have much
friendship
to
from
offer
them.
in general.
Interesting you say that.
No, both of them. It's really great to have like actors that really give you stuff to work off of, and I think almost every co-star on the show we've had has done that, especially Virginia.
Oh yeah, especially Virginia
and Adam.
We learned so much from them.
Yeah, so much.
There's no place for me here. You still don't get where you fit into all this.
First question is a big one. Can you each pinpoint something in the source material that was especially important to uphold in the show? But then I also want to know something that you had to evolve or change to suit the new medium.
I think the thing that felt to me, and I think to Rick, like it was most important, really lives in every moment. It's the voice. I think in his mind, it's what the story is, more than the monsters, more than the adventure. It's the tone, and I think the more time I spent with the story, the more it really does start to feel like the plot's important, and there's a lot of things that are critical to being a part of this show. If you want it to feel like it's capturing the full sense of the journey, but if any part of it fails to live with the right sense of humor and the right irreverence and the right sense of charm, it all falls apart. And so I think that was the big test, was there's lots of different things you can do with the story as long as it feels like it could have been in those books for that reason.
And I think it was also the Greek mythology of it all is like the amount of creatures that we needed to show and honor from the books is how do you just make it visually our own? Because these are iconic things that people have seen so many variations of for thousands of years. And how do you find very specific things that this could only be on Percy Jackson, or this could only be something that is just so unique, and we had to find that thing with each one of them, and that was a real tall order and a trick to figure that out at this high level.
Can you give us an example of one of those?
The Minotaur we talk about a lot because it was, everyone has seen it, kind of like just a man's body with a bull head, and we wanted it to also, we were like, what if he's also on all fours? What if at first he's on all fours and that makes him more powerful, faster, can come at us in that way like a bull, and then all of a sudden you see a transformation where he now stands up on two legs, and it's like, oh, this isn't your everyday bull.
I dug it quite a bit. All right, I have to ask about working with Rick here. Every adaptation process is different, so can you tell me a little bit about why it was important for this show to have him so heavily involved?
It's not just a story that's super personal for him and for his family, although it is. I think the relationship between this fan base and Rick and Becky is unusual and special, and I think the awareness that this story was going to have to change a little bit to migrate from one medium to another, trying to be aware of that and then think about what it would be like to try to deliver that to an audience without Rick's blessing and without Rick's guidance and without his voice in it. I don't know why you would even try. And so the constant process of being able to look to him and say, is this right? Are we too far afield, or is this something that's just interesting? And to have both his openness to having those conversations and his honesty about saying that in it, or that's really cool, I hadn't thought of that, was great.
I'll ask for an example of that as well. Is there a particular thing we can see in the show where you had to ask him, is this right? And either he put you on a better path or confirmed you nailed it.
There are gods who do not appear in the context in which they appear in the book, but they do in the show. In the show, there are really good reasons, I think, why they're there, both for story, for Percy's experience, for the world we're building, but it's departure. And there were a couple of times where you just got the sense it isn't time for that yet. And there were a couple of times when you pitch it and you're a little nervous because it's a big change, and you just watch him smile and feel like that's really cool. If I was a fan of this, I would really like to see that happen. And it was critical. I think the ability to have those conversations in that way was critical.
But he also got the chance to look back 20 years and say, what do I want to do with this? Which is, you don't get that very often, where it's like you get to look at a second draft of this and go, oh, there were things I did, or he didn't even know necessarily what books 2, 3, 4, 5, and now 6 were going to be. So we can now pull from all of that material to layer this throughout. And so I think it was exciting for him to dive into this and say, what can I pull into Lightning Thief for this season?
Speaks to the value of continuing a series. There's always more to discover and more to evolve along the way. Another specific thing I wanted to ask you guys about was the choice to cast actors that are a similar age to the characters. Can you maybe explain why some productions don't do that and why you felt it was important to do that here?
It's really easy to explain. They can only shoot for half a day, and so everything gets really complicated. It's also really easy to explain why we felt like we had to. If I'm 12 years old and I'm watching 19-year-olds have the conversations I have when I'm 12, something's not right. And I think in order to start the story where it wanted to be, which was these kids who were just starting the experience of becoming a teenager and just emerging from the experience of being a child, you got to feel it. And there's really no way to cheat it. And so you just embrace all of the things that it comes with. And you hope you find great kids. And we did. So it ended up working out.
And you need great partners who will support that, because a lot of people, first question you get when you dive into a project like this is like, oh, can they be 18? Because then you can work on full days, and that was really not a factor here. It was very clear from the top. Rick was very adamant about it. We were very adamant about it, and the studio and Disney supported it the entire time. But that adds days, that adds cost, that adds just complication, and but it was always the mantra that that's how this has to be.
So glad you stuck your ground on that matter. Big broad question. Going into filming season 1, which scene did you think would be most challenging to pull off? And then ultimately, was that indeed the most challenging, or did a different one catch you by surprise?
I think going into it, the Minotaur sequence feels pretty apparent that it's going to come with a whole host of challenges to it. And in a way, I think it makes it a little easier because you know what you're getting into, and you go into it with all of the resources kind of brought to bear for it. There are things that sneak up on you, I think, as being a little bit more complicated than they first appeared, in trying to figure out a way to make Medusa someone who both was connected to her canon mythologically and in the book, but felt new and different. That was a slightly tougher nut to crack. As a design issue, as much as a character issue, as much as a casting issue, as much as a voice issue. And so that was something that I'm pretty proud of, that we were able to kind of figure out a way to make all of those things work in the same package.
Any other examples you can give us?
For me, and it's going to take a few more episodes to get there, but is the underworld. The scope, the scale, a 35-foot three-headed dog. There's a lot to figure out, and every set piece had to be massive, and how to achieve it, and the design for it. Dan Henn, our production designer, did such a beautiful job, but it was really, really complicated, and I'm pretty excited about how it turned out.
All right, I saved my most dangerous question for last. I know when you go into season 1 of a show, you often have a series roadmap. What can you tease about that series roadmap? But then also, given you learn every step of the way, is there anything about that planned roadmap that has changed based on what you learned making season 1?
The roadmap's easy. Rick wrote it, so in a way that most shows don't have, you know exactly where you're going. I think the nature of these books is such that are there things you learn from book to book? For sure, but they're such different movies. And every one of these things, if we're fortunate enough to go about making them, is going to bring all of a whole series of new questions and problems and puzzles into the mix. So hopefully, well, we should be so lucky to end up having to solve those problems.
Do I dare ask if you want to add anything to that one?
I mean, that's what's exciting about the books, is that each one is so different from the one that came before. So it's just these new challenges. You know, our hope is we get to dive into those and figure it out. And that's what was season 1 was like. Okay, how do you do Mount Olympus? How do you do the underworld? How do you do some of these really complicated creatures? And when you have the best team around you, you figure it out, and that's what we're most proud of.